Yo, what's good? What's going on? Welcome into the show. A happy Wednesday to everybody. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Sr., and no matter where you are, how you're tuning, go Birds! We appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day. Plenty to get into here on this Wednesday, November 12th. So hang out here with us. Don't go anywhere. We got a lot to get into here. Latest Philadelphia Eagles news. We're going to do an Eagles-Lions preview. Huge game coming up on Sunday Night Football. Eagles fans also getting some fun news going into this game. Jalen Phillips is a dog. Is he going to get a bag after the season? Because what he did against Green Bay, once again reuniting with Vic Fangio, very impressive. And then we'll do a mailbag. So get your questions in. Use the hashtag Eagles or send in a super chat. Obviously, a lot of Eagles news last night into today. And with this football team, we never sleep. And that's why we bring you continuous coverage here on the show. And earlier today, I did a video on Philadelphia Eagles Now talking about Jaire Alexander stepping away from the team. Could the Eagles go and try to poach Asante Samuel Jr. off the Steelers practice squad? They could do that if they added him to their active roster. Discussed A.J. Brown as well. And so that video is up on the channel, but I do want to expand on some of this because we do have some new details. So the news last night from Jay Glazer, Fox NFL Insider, that Jaire Alexander has decided to step away from football to try to focus on getting himself right physically and mentally before deciding on his future. Alexander informed the Eagles of his decision today. And obviously that tweet, as I mentioned, was on Tuesday night. And there's been a popular question from Eagles fans. Well, Chase, will the Eagles get their draft pick back that they sent to Baltimore? So this trade was completed, and we'll pop up the trade here in a moment, pending a physical. Jaire Alexander passed his physical with the Eagles. So this trade can no longer be voided. The only way that the Eagles can get that pick back is that if they reached out to Baltimore and they say, look, we made that trade in good faith thinking that Jaire was going to be good to go and help out our football team. We gave you a 6th. How about you give us back our 6th? We'll give you back your 7th. You got 2 games, out of Jaire Alexander. We didn't get a single game from Jaire Alexander. Could we flip-flop those picks? But that couldn't happen until this upcoming offseason. So as of right now, this trade is official. The Eagles today putting him on the reserve retired list, and they brought him in because they wanted another vet at the cornerback spot. They thought that maybe reuniting him with Christian Parker, who coached him in Green Bay when he became an All-Pro, could get him back on track because he didn't play that well with the Ravens. It was a risk because of all of the injury problems that Jaire has had over the last few years, and there's been a lot of injuries. But the most serious one, a knee injury that he's never quite come back from to get to 100%. What was odd, though, last week, he was saying, yeah, I feel really good. Then it was the coach's decision for him to not travel to Green Bay to play on Monday Night Football. Maybe the Eagles saw him in practice and they said, you know what, we don't think this guy is what we thought he was going to be from a health standpoint, and we don't think that he's game ready. And maybe Jaire felt, I don't feel ready either. And obviously, when you've been a second-team All-Pro and you've reached the peak at your position, you've gotten a big contract, and then you can't do it physically anymore, that can wear on you from a mental standpoint as well. So I do hope Jaire Alexander is okay physically and okay mentally, because like all of you, I do take mental health very seriously. And then obviously there was this story as well, which I woke up to because it happened late last night. A.J. Brown on a Twitch stream with Janky Rondo, once again adding fuel to the fire that he's not happy with the Eagles. And I tweeted this out this morning after seeing all of this, that the A.J. Brown stuff is exhausting. I have nothing left to say on it until after the season. Well, I lied. I changed my mind because I do have a lot of thoughts on this, and I talked about that earlier today, and it is getting to a point where I'm tired of talking about it, but this is a big story. And one of my big issues is Eagles fans saying, the media in Philly, they suck. A bunch of nitwits. They're poison. You know why we talk about this, right? Because A.J. Brown starts it all. So, of course, we're going to discuss it when seemingly the number one wide receiver on the team and a top 3 wideout in the game And a guy who I think is the best wide receiver in franchise history continues to be unhappy. So on this Madden Twitch stream with Janky Rondo, there was an exchange. AJ was asked by Janky, is everything good? AJ said, no. Laughing, where have you been? Family's good. Everything else? No, it's a shit show. Now, some people are saying that he didn't say shit show. Kind of sounded like that. Other people are saying that like he was basically saying for show. But then he said to Janky, you on some how you been stuff. Well, I'm struggling, brother. And then AJ a little later on said, if you have me on your fantasy football team, get rid of me. If I'm the quarterback of the team, I'm like, really? Come on now. You've been with the Eagles 3 years prior to this year. You've been an all-pro every year. You've gone over 1,000 yards every year. Then AJ threw himself the ball in Madden and said, let's show him some love. Good things happen when you get touches. He scored a touchdown, and he said, this is the only positive that I got. So AJ Brown is to blame for stirring up all of this controversy. Nick Sirianni is even tired of talking about it. He talked to the media today and said, you know what? I'm getting close to the point where I'm done taking questions on this. All I can judge this on, he said, is my interactions with the player. He's been working hard. And, of course, Kevin Patullo can do a better job of getting him the football. Jalen Hurts can do a better job of getting him the football. But AJ is also to blame as well because he's the culprit too in this. For our mailbag, get your questions in right now. This is going to be somewhat of a shorter live show, so get your questions in right now using the hashtag Eagles or by sending in a super chat. We've got 260 people watching live. If you're ready to talk some birds, hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. Do me a big favor. The more likes that we get, the more people who find the stream, the more people who come in here, and the more fun that we'll have. Shout out to the recent commenter club as well. I see Trey Lusado, Alina, my boy Waffle Crusher. Look at my boy Chase. Waffle, what is up, my man? So like the video, let's get the stream to 100 likes. Our audience will spike with that. Just helps us out with the algorithm. And we're going to start off with our Eagles-Lions preview, which is coming up right now. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now. Welcome into the show. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, a fantastic program. What an awesome matchup we have in Week 11 at Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday Night Football between the host Philadelphia Eagles and the visiting Detroit Lions. The Eagles in this game coming back home after being on the road against the Packers on Monday Night Football. So obviously, Philadelphia got back really early on Tuesday morning. They have the rest disadvantage in this game. The plus to that, they are at home. And so Philadelphia, coming off that impressive win against Green Bay, they really have put together an impressive resume this season. 2-point favorites. The over-under is pretty high, so the odds makers expecting this to potentially be a high-scoring game. The over-under is 50 right now. Kickoff is set for 8:20 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, November 16th at the link under the bright lights. A programming reminder, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us. While you're at it, be sure to hit that bell icon, turn on your notifications. Therefore, anytime I push out a video like this, anytime we go live for a live show or a watch party, you will get that push notification. You will be notified. And if you want Elite Eagles coverage every single day, you know I got you covered. And we'll be live for an Eagles-Lions watch party. Can't wait to see all of you on Sunday evening. So around this time last year, November of 2024, it really did feel like we were on a collision course between the Eagles and the Lions meeting in the NFC Championship game. Because both of these teams at this juncture of the season were playing great ball. They were both really hot. What happened? Well, the Eagles stayed healthy. Their offense found a groove. Their defense ended up evolving into the top overall unit in the NFL. And the Lions were still winning at a high clip. And on offense, coordinated by Ben Johnson, the play caller, they were humming. But on defense, they had defenders dropping like flies. Now, the Lions still got the number one seed in the NFC. They would have had home field advantage all throughout the playoffs. But after that first round bye, they lost to the hot Washington Commanders at home. And so we didn't get that NFC Championship game that a lot of people thought we were going to get between the two top teams in the NFC for much of last year. Injuries really robbed Detroit. And the year prior, they did make it to the NFC Championship game and had a 17-point advantage against the San Francisco 49ers before they choked that game away in the second half. But this game could be a preview of a high-level future playoff matchup because once again here in 2025, led by Brad Holmes, the Lions general manager, and Howie Roseman, the Eagles general manager, these are two of the most talented ball clubs in the NFL and two of the deepest teams in the NFL. And right now, they're both sitting pretty in the NFC playoff picture. And this game could go a long way in deciding who potentially gets that number one seed or could shuffle up the NFC playoff standings. Philadelphia in that top spot at 7-2. They have the better conference record than Seattle, who is 7-2. They are 7-1 since their week 1 loss against the Niners. The Lions have been hot. We'll take a look at their schedule coming up. Then 4 through 7, closely contested right now. The Buccaneers at 6-3, leading the NFC South. The Rams are that top wildcard team at 7-2. The Bears, the second wildcard team in a loaded NFC North at 6-3. And then the Green Bay Packers as part of the NFC North as well. That final playoff spot at 5-3-1. They were the 2 seed going into this past week. The Detroit Lions so far. I was wondering how they were going to fare this year because they lost Ben Johnson, the most pursued offensive coordinator in recent memory. He's now the head coach of the Chicago Bears. And they lost their defensive coordinator in Aaron Glenn, who became the head coach of the Jets. And in week 1, they lost pretty badly to Green Bay. They weren't good on offense. They weren't good on defense. Then they went on a tear. Beat the Bears in week 2, 52-21. They got that anger out. Beat the Ravens when Baltimore was still pretty healthy, 38-30 in primetime on the road. Demolished the Browns 34-10 in week 4. Beat the Bengals 37-24. They lost to the Chiefs after winning 4 straight, but the Chiefs were in a must-win spot there. They come off of that Chiefs loss. They beat the Buccaneers 24-9. They lose to the Vikings 2 weeks ago, surprisingly, at home, but it's a divisional game, 27-24. And then they dominated the Commanders last week. Obviously, the Commanders are old and brittle, 44-22. But that offense was clicking, and Dan Campbell was the play caller. He took over play calling duties. You look at how the Lions stack up this season, they are a superb team. And they are graded and ranked very highly on the offensive side of the pill and the defensive side of the rock. Number 2 in points per game at 31.4. Number 6 in yards per game at 372.4. 4th in yards per play, 6.1. 21st on third downs at 37.5%, but they are number 4 in red zone touchdown rate at 68.4%. On defense, 13th in points per game at 22.2. That'll play, though, when you're dropping 31-plus points per game. Plus, they play a fast style that doesn't always help out the defense in a complementary way. Detroit, 7th in yards per game given up, under 300. 7th in yards per play at 5. 7th on third downs. Interestingly enough, though, teams do have success in the red zone against this Lions defense, scoring touchdowns at a 66.6% rate. When I scout the Detroit Lions, this is a pretty big change, and it was a bold move by Dan Campbell, who is very bold and aggressive. He took over play calling duties against Washington, and what did the Lions do? They scored 40-plus points. Now, that Commanders defense is old, they're banged up, and the Commanders just demoted their defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, will now call their defensive plays. But Dan Campbell did some creative things that I really liked from a schematic and play design standpoint, and it was a collaborative approach, but he was on the headset calling plays. Jared Goff, once again, putting together a really good year. He throws one of the prettiest balls in football. Amon-Ra St. Brown from that wide receiver spot, an absolute stud, a top 5 wide receiver in the game, and he could play inside, outside. The Lions 1-2 punch at running back with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, flash and pound, is elite. And this Lions team, like the Eagles, they've built their team in the trenches. Along the offensive line, led by Penei Sewell. On the defensive line, led by Aiden Hutchinson. And that really is the backbone of their team because under Dan Campbell, they want to play a bruising downhill style. On the injury report for the Lions, Marcus Davenport, he was activated off of IR. He started practicing this week, but dealing with the pec injury, which landed him on IR, not expected to play in this game. More so, in December. DJ Reed, same can be said for him. Not going to play in this game most likely, coming off a hamstring injury. Aiden Hutchinson did not practice on Wednesday. Kirby Joseph dealing with the knee, an excellent corner there. Terrion Arnold dealing with a concussion. Thankfully, the Eagles got Quinyon Mitchell in that draft. Penei Sewell, Brock Wright getting veteran rest days. Penei Sewell, I think Lane Johnson's going to be watching him, because he was named an All-Pro last year ahead of Lane, and you can certainly make the argument that Lane Johnson was a lot better than Sewell. Speaking of Lane Johnson, in that game on Monday night against Green Bay, he suffered that left ankle injury when he got rolled up on as the safety came from that backside on a Saquon Barkley run. He was out for a long time. He was never ruled out. And then when the Eagles were trying to clinch the game late, Lane hobbled onto the field and he gave it a go. He is one of the biggest MVPs on this Eagles offense. And this has been the case since he was drafted out of Oklahoma by Chip Kelly, all the way back in 2013. In his career, since joining the Eagles, when he is on the field, the Eagles are 105-55-1. A lot of winning. When Lane Johnson does not start, the Eagles are 15-23 without him. Him going up against the likes of an Aiden Hutchinson would obviously be a marquee matchup in this football game if Lane Train can play. So who you got in this game? Type DET for Detroit, PHI for Philadelphia. Get those predictions in, and I'll give you my score prediction coming up here in just a little bit. Now, coming up next, just around the corner, I'm going to give you my keys to the game, my top matchups to watch, what the Eagles must do to beat Detroit. Let's get to our sponsor. Today's Philadelphia Eagles Now is sponsored by DraftKings Sportsbook. You know this show as the Chase and Chip Show. I grew up in Chester County, producer Chip in Bucks County, so we are lifelong Philadelphia fans. And I used to host our 76ers channel, but because Eagles Now has grown into an empire, Chip now hosts our 76ers channel. And DraftKings sponsors our Sixers show, so go over there and subscribe to that channel. But DraftKings is also sponsoring today's show, but you will see that the code that you need to use is Sixers Chat, and you can hear from Chip right now.
All your favorite NBA players are back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is the place to bet on NBA stars this season. New customers, bet just $5 and get 3 months of NBA League Pass, plus score $300 if your bet wins, paid in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SixersChat. That's code SixersChat. Bet $5 and get 3 months of League Pass, plus get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, pass-through of per-wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. NBA League Pass auto renews until canceled. Additional terms at dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
Thank you, Chip, for that. And we'll take a look at Chip's picks, plus 410 on this parlay. Eagles money line against the Lions. Devontae Smith, 60-plus receiving yards. He's emerged this year as the Eagles' number one wideout. Saquon Barkley, anytime touchdown score. Odds and lines subject to change. Bet $5, get 3 months of League Pass. Use that code SixersChat. All right, let's move forward here with our Eagles-Lions preview. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of it. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Senior. Thanks for hanging out here with me. I cannot wait for this game on Sunday Night Football between the Eagles and the Lions. This Eagles schedule here in 2025, it's a very difficult one. The plus side is we get to see a lot of the top teams across the league, and the Lions are that. Here are my keys to the game, matchups to watch, what Philadelphia must do in order to win this game, and I will give you my prediction as well. And let's begin here by setting the foundation for what we're getting into here, a sneak peek into what you can expect from this Lions ball club, which is one of the top teams in the National Football League on both sides of the football. Number 2 in points per game on offense, 6th in yards per game, 4th in yards per play, 21st on third downs. They make up for that by not moving the chains, by being very efficient inside the red zone. Number 4 there with a 68.4 red zone touchdown scoring percentage, meaning when they get inside the 20, They're scoring touchdowns 68% of the time. On defense, led by Aiden Hutchinson, one of the top pass rushers in football, 13th in points per game. But keep in mind that this Lions offense generates explosive plays, and sometimes they play at a fast pace that is very frenetic. And so that doesn't always do a lot of favors for the defense. And so they can be susceptible to giving up a decent amount of points. So 13th in points per game at 22.2 isn't great as far as the league ranking, but when you're dropping 31.4 per ball game, that is a 9-point difference right there. They are 7th in yards per game, 7th in yards per play, 7th on third downs, but 25th in the red zone. And that could be a key area in this game because the Eagles all year have had the number 1 most efficient red zone touchdown scoring offense in the NFL at 80.9%. That has been a big plus to what has otherwise been a very maddening and frustrating offensive season for Philadelphia, that when they get inside the 20, nearly 81% of the time, those drives are leading to 7 points on the board. Now, Philadelphia is 12th in points per game at 24.2 on offense, but 23rd in yards per game at 303.2, 20th in yards per play at 5.3. They have struggled on third downs, 34.8% there. The defense is really rising up in some of these categories, and it's led by their pass rush being a lot more dynamic the last couple of weeks. 10th in points per game, 18th in yards per game, 13th in yards per play, 26th on third downs. They need to get better there, and that improved pass rush should help a little bit on obvious passing downs. But when the opposing offense gets inside the red area, Eagles do a good job of bending but not breaking and forcing field goals. 48.1% red zone touchdown rate. That is number 4 in the NFL. As far as my keys to the game and the top matchups to watch, I can't wait to see Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the top wide receivers in football, go up against Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Once again, Amon-Ra is having a fantastic year. 82 targets, 64 catches, 693 yards, and 8 touchdowns going into Week 11 here. And why I mentioned him going up against Q and Coop, the Lions use him all around the field, just like Ben Johnson did in years prior. He is lined up in the slot 213 times. So you'll see him go up against DeJean there. He's lined up out wide for 278 snaps. Wouldn't surprise me if the Lions use him out wide on the Adoree Jackson side quite often. And then they'll do some trickery with Amon-Ra from time to time. He's been in the backfield for 9 snaps. But that's what makes him a dynamic player and a mismatch nightmare, because the Lions will put him anywhere on the field to try to exploit the defense and take advantage of his vast skill set. Key to the game number 2. Will this Philadelphia Eagles pass rush eat against Jared Goff? Obviously, the Eagles have gone up against mobile quarterbacks this year. They've gone up against pocket quarterbacks this year. Jared Goff is immobile. He cannot move around. He will not hurt you with his legs, at least very rarely. If he does, it's because everybody else drops back in coverage and there's plenty of real estate in front of him. He is very slow-footed. He is a traditional drop-back pocket quarterback. And so if this Eagles pass rush can bring it, which they've done in the last 2 games, I really like the Eagles' chances of winning. Historically as well, Jared Goff's splits playing inside compared to outside are a lot different. He struggled in the outdoors, especially in cold weather. He's a California guy. This year, though, to his credit, his stats are actually pretty even in a dome compared to outside. But as the weather starts to get a little bit colder, we'll see if that changes at all. It's not expected to be crazy cold on Sunday night, moderate temperatures for a mid-November game. But going back to this Eagles pass rush, against Jordan Love, they pressured him on 17 of his 42 dropbacks. That was the second highest pressure rate that Love has experienced this year. And when he was pressured, he went 3 of 12 for 21 yards and 3 sacks. And that Eagles pass rush was led by their newest acquisition, Jalen Phillips. He had 6.5 sacks in 8 games under Vic Fangio back in 2023. And I thought that the scheme familiarity was going to be huge for the Eagles making this move, in the sense that he was a plug-and-play starter right from the jump and played a ton of snaps in his first game because he didn't have to get caught up with the scheme. He already knows it. And he said one of the more exciting things about coming to Philadelphia is teaming back up with Vic Fangio, and he was one of the only players with that soft Miami team. that liked that hard coaching from Fangio. And in that game against Green Bay, he took over. He dominated. 8 pressure, 7 hurries, 2 quarterback hits, a 19.4% pressure rate. He had 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery. Reed Blankenship kind of gets credit for that, but Jalen Phillips blew up the play and helped to dislodge the ball. And he did lead the charge on that play of stuffing Josh Jacobs on that 4th and 1. Shout out to Moro Ojomo too, right? Inside zone this way, inside zone this way. So that's what that pass rush did against Green Bay. The game before that, before the bye week, this Eagles pass rush also came alive against Jackson Dart. 18 pressures on 24 Dart throws. They sacked Dart 5 times. That Giants offensive line had been playing well, and they registered 12 quarterback hits. You had Phillips balling out against Green Bay. Jaire Alexander played well against the Packers. Against the Giants, Jaire Alexander had one of the better games of his career. This is a significant development because he's really started to turn it on after a slow start to the year. Nolan Smith had a sack of Jordan Love coming off of IR against the Packers. And now you add Jalen Phillips to the mix with Moro Ojomo, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis along the interior. The point that I'm making here is this Eagles defensive front and this Eagles pass rush is looking scary good, and that is something that can lift you to a Super Bowl, and that is something that wins in the postseason and against elite teams like Detroit. Now for Hunt, finally recorded his first sack against the Giants. He had 28 pressures on the season up until that point. He had 16 in those 3 games going into the bye week. And against the Giants, he had 9 pressures and 1 sack. And so you combine what he did against Green Bay, these numbers are even better for Jaire Alexander. And so important to emphasize that if the Eagles can get pressure on Jared Goff, he's not mobile. He's not going to be able to break contain. You don't have to really worry about that with the disciplined pass rush lanes. And if you do pressure him, he is prone to turning the football over. It's not going to be easy because of the scheme, the play calling, the weapons that the Lions have, and their offensive line, pretty damn good. You have Taylor Decker at left tackle, Coyote Awasika at left guard, Graham Glasgow takes over at center, Tate Ratledge, a player who I really liked in the pre-draft for Philadelphia because of that Georgia connection and that beautiful mullet, is at right guard, and then Penei Sewell at right tackle. Key to the game number 3, matchup number 3. The Eagles' run defense will be tested. And I think so far this year, they've been pretty good, but they haven't been great. And this Lions backfield has an interesting dynamic to it. Jahmyr Gibbs is the flash. His pull-away speed, some of the most electric pull-away speed that you will see at the position in the NFL. But he gives you physicality too and a pass-catching threat. This year, he's been a top 3 back in football, right up there with Jonathan Taylor, who's in the MVP conversation. 128 carries for Gibbs, 693 yards, 8 touchdowns, a long of 78, which came on that primetime game against the Buccaneers. When you watch him, you say, wow, because he can be gone in a blink. So he's a difficult cover. And going into the draft a couple of years ago, I had said, I don't really see that much of a difference between him and Bijan Robinson to start their careers. They've both been exceptional. David Montgomery, he is the physical bell cow, downhill, run you over type of back who is a different change of pace from Jahmyr Gibbs. And the Lions will interchange their backs all throughout the game, depending on down and distance, obviously workload, but the flow of the game and the complexion of the game. 104 carries this year for Montgomery, 466 yards, and he has 5 touchdowns. So that's 13 rushing touchdowns between the 2 backs this year. Key to the game number 4. This is a really big talking point for me. The Eagles scored 10 points to beat the Green Bay Packers, a team that, of course, the Lions are very familiar with. With how elite and high scoring, the high-octane offense that Detroit has, 10 points isn't going to win this game. And if the Eagles can only muster 10 points in this ball game, they will get blown out. And so the offense has to improve upon what they did against Green Bay. It's important to remember that against the Packers, the real field temperature was like 17 degrees, and there were howling winds that will impact offensive football. But this isn't going to play against Detroit. Thankfully, as of right now, the weather is going to be a little bit better in South Philly on Sunday night. A little bit chilly. Not too chilly, though. And oftentimes, it's not too windy at the link. But 294 yards of total offense, 4.9 yards per play, 183 passing yards, 111 on the ground, 3.3 yards per tote. Losing the turnover battle would be big in this game. Eagles fumbled it away against Green Bay on the opening drive. Otherwise, maybe the game is a little bit different. Micah Parsons also tripped Saquon Barkley late. That could have been a house call. Time of possession, pretty even between Philadelphia and Green Bay. And time of possession is also something important here. If you can keep that Lions offense on the sideline, you got to like your chances of winning as well. And as part of that fourth talking point here, Kevin Patullo, Eagles offensive coordinator against the Packers at times this year. Wasn't the case against Minnesota, wasn't the case against New York, but sometimes he coordinates scared. He calls plays scared and in a very conservative way. You know that Dan Campbell is going to be aggressive. They're going to go for it on fourth down often. They're going to try to slit your throat in a football sense, right? And so you have to match that aggressiveness, and you can't play or call games scared. Detroit also, as part of that, really does a good job of seizing momentum and taking advantage of momentum changes. And, my gosh, can we get A.J. Brown more than 3 targets? If there is a weakness on this Lions team, it is their secondary, especially at the cornerback spot, and they're dealing with some injuries there. This is a game, after A.J. Brown made some more noise, where the passing game should be able to click. Predict the score. Lions-Eagles, Sunday Night Football. It's going to be an epic one. And here's my prediction. I know the Eagles had the rest disadvantage playing Monday night on the road against Green Bay. The Lions had a head start as far as game planning goes. But the Eagles have really risen up in these big spots all year, and they get up for these types of games. They know the importance that this game can play by season's end as far as the seeding goes. They're at home. They're fired up. They dealt with some noise this week. I think they're going to be motivated. And I think Philadelphia wants to show everybody that when we play our best football, we are the best team in the NFC. And they want home field advantage this year to go through the link. Give me the Birds 29-26 and a thriller at the link. All right. About to do our mailbag. Last call. Get your questions in. Hashtag Eagles. Send in a super chat. Within your comments, all you got to do, use the hashtag Eagles, send in a super chat, and we'll answer your questions here on the show. I see Andrew Nathan using the hashtag Eagles. Good stuff. A couple others using the hashtag Eagles as well. But if you want to be a part of our mailbag, use the hashtag Eagles, and we'll answer your questions. How we doing there, Chip?
Yeah, we got some good questions. Good job for the people so far.
Awesome.
Got some good stuff in. So, last chance. Get those questions in, baby. Just like CLX.
Let's do it.
Man, that's quite the question from him as well. Asking about Brian Dable.
I love it. I love it. All right, we'll get into that here. The front end of the show, what Dan Campbell said about coming into Philadelphia. We'll talk some Jalen Phillips, and then we'll take your questions. So segment number 2 coming up right now. Another great show on tap for all of you today. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Senior. Thanks for being here. There are so many great content options out there, podcasts, YouTube channels, radio shows, TV shows, anything digitally. That's why anytime you decide to hang out here with me, I greatly appreciate that. Coming up on the show, Dan Campbell had some funny things to say about playing in Philadelphia. Is Jalen Phillips going to get a bag after this year from Philadelphia or somebody else? An NFL insider has something to say about that. And then we'll round out the show by taking your questions as part of our Philadelphia Eagles Now mailbag. I do want to begin here, though. If you're a diehard Eagles fan and you want top-notch, elite Eagles coverage every single day from your boy right here on the channel, lock us in and hit that sub button. We're 430 people away from 137,000 subscribers. Another monster game for Philadelphia on this Gauntlet 2025 schedule on Sunday Night Football against the Detroit Lions. Kickoff is set for 8:20 p.m. Eastern at the link. Over-under at 50, so the odds makers expecting some points to be scored. Weather expected to hold up in South Philly for a mid-November game. And Philadelphia, 2-point favorites in a game that I think is going to come down to the wire, be very closely played, And we're going to be riding the seesaw going back and forth between two of the top teams in the league. And this is a game that will have a lot of playoff implications by season's end. This is a game where both teams have an opportunity, if they win, to own the tiebreaker to potentially have home field advantage in the NFC. Philadelphia right now in that top spot at 7-2, only one game ahead of Detroit. Both teams have played 9 games. They've had their byes. Seattle, also on the Eagles' heels at 7-2, but the Eagles do have the better NFC record there. They don't play this year. The Eagles did beat the Bucs. They beat the Rams. They play the Bears on Black Friday, and they already beat the Packers. So if Philadelphia, without having to play Seattle this year, can beat Detroit as well, all of the teams that you could be competing against to get that number 1 seed, you have the ability to beat all of them and sweep them. That's another reason why this game is huge. And I think this game is going to be electric. Anybody who's been to a primetime Eagles game at the Link knows the buzz is palpable around the stadium starting in the wee hours of the morning. People will tailgate all day, drink all day, cook all day, play tailgating games all day, tossing the pill, playing some cornhole, all types of games. It is going to be an incredible atmosphere outside of the Link, which then leads to this game being really tightly contested and a great atmosphere inside the Link. Plus, it adds to it that these are two of the top teams in the league. And so this is a massive game with playoff implications between two top-tier teams in South Philly on Sunday night. And I really have a lot of respect for Dan Campbell. He's primarily been a CEO head coach like Nick Sirianni, but on Sunday against Washington, he took over play calling duties. The Lions went on to drop 40-plus points. I love how aggressive he is, how much he cares for his players, how he doesn't care what people say about him. He always gets his teams fired up, ready to play. They're always tough and rugged. I kind of like his brash style. He has a lot of swag. This is a coach that I would like to play for. I also like his honesty and how he keeps it a buck. And he kept it real about playing in Philadelphia, and he acknowledged what type of special place this is. He said, Philly, it's a great place to play. It's electric. I had batteries thrown at us, spit on, just the classic stuff when I was a player. It's probably the most hostile place to play. Going into the stadium, leaving it during the game, things have backed off a lot now since back in the day. Some of these things you can't do anymore. And Campbell, he said all of this during a radio appearance this week. He also relayed a rookie experience that he had when he and his teammates celebrated a Michael Strahan pick 6 to win the game in, I believe, 1999 when he was playing tight end. And here's what he had to say about that experience. We all go back to meet him, and it was like a 64-ounce cup this guy had that was full of tobacco spit. Dan Campbell is a tobacco dipper as well, by the way. And I'm running over there celebrating, and he pours it on Strahan's back while everybody is running over there. I backed off at the last minute, just stuff like that. It's a hostile environment. It gets you fired up. I'll make sure our guys are prepared. They're going to love this. Our guys are going to embrace this. This is fun stuff. First of all, can you imagine having a 64-ounce cup of tobacco spit being poured on you? If you've ever hung out with buddies who dip, one of your worst fears is picking up that cup and accidentally sipping that, thinking that it's a beer or a soda. Now, I can't dip because I start to get lightheaded, and I think I have like nicotine sensitivity, but I've been around people who dip, and I always make sure, sniff that cup, make sure it's not that tobacco spit, because that's disgusting. Can you imagine picking off a pass, you're celebrating with your teammates, and some Philly guy's like, yo, F you, pours a tobacco spit cup on you. Brutal, funny celebration, not something I'd want to have happen to me, but you know what I love about what Dan Campbell said? He didn't say anything bad about the Eagles. He played this up in a positive way and said, our team is going to love this. We're going to embrace it. And I really like that type of attitude. Furthermore, from Dan Campbell, this is a heavyweight match. One misstep can cost you this game. That shouldn't make you tight. That shouldn't make you play conservative. Hello, Kevin Patullo. Just understand it's going to take all 3 units in every play you've got to give it your full attention and lay it on the freaking line. You can't ask for anything better. Our guys are going to be so excited to play in this one. Our coaches are excited to coach in it. This is big-time football on Sunday night. We're fired up. Now, I love Nick Sirianni, but Dan Campbell just got me fired up for this game. And wouldn't you love to play for a guy like that? I'd put my body on the line and sacrifice it for a guy like Dan Campbell. And this adds to the juice that this game has. I always say this. Eagles fans are some of the most knowledgeable fans in the world, in all of sports. They know exactly what Dan Campbell has said, and that's going to make them up their level of intensity and how loud and rowdy they get. Now, if you think the Eagles are going to beat the Detroit Lions on Sunday night, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. If not, that's fine. But I want you to comment and explain why down in the comment section right now. So when Howie Roseman last Monday in the lead up to the deadline made that trade for Jalen Phillips, it was a move that I was a big fan of. I like Jalen Phillips, the player. Obviously, he tore his Achilles in 2023, ACL in 2024, medically retired in college. But when he's right and when he's healthy, he's been a very productive pass rusher, especially under Vic Fangio. And I like that part of it too, that element of it too, because I knew that because of the scheme familiarity, Phillips was going to be able to play and handle a large workload right from the jump. Well, he impressed me even more. He started for Philadelphia and played a majority of snaps for the Eagles on Monday night against Green Bay, and he dominated. This is a trade that if he continues to play like this, makes Howie Roseman look even smarter, elevates the defense even more. And I also made this point. When you put Jalen Phillips on this line alongside Jalen Carter, Moro Ajomo, who I predicted was going to be better this year than Milton Williams was last year, and he has, alongside Jordan Davis, Jalen Hunt, Nolan Smith, he's going to get one-on-one opportunities. It's going to open up opportunities for others. And what happened? The Eagles had their best collective pass rushing game of the season against Green Bay, and Phillips led the charge. 8 pressures, 7 hurries, 2 quarterback hits, a pressure rate of 19.4%, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, and he stuffed Josh Jacobs on that critical 4th and 1. As far as that trade, this is important to remind people. The Eagles gave up a 2026 third-round pick. They had 3 third-round picks already, so they still have 2. And if Jalen Phillips leaves after the year in free agency, the Eagles will get back a third-round pick. And there's a possibility he departs Philadelphia to go somewhere else because of the price tag, especially if he continues to ball out the rest of the way for the Eagles during this stretch run. Here's what Jeremy Fowler, ESPN NFL Insider, had to say. Jalen Phillips' free agency has my attention. He was knocking on the door of becoming a top 10 pass rusher in the NFL before injuries hit. But now he's rounding into form and looks rejuvenated by the trade that sent him to Philadelphia, recording all the numbers that he recorded on Monday night. If Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio can help maximize Phillips, a massive payday might be waiting in Philadelphia or elsewhere. This puts the Eagles in a position to earn a strong compensatory pick for Phillips if he does leave, which was why it was a no-brainer for Howie Roseman to make this move. You still have third-round picks remaining, and if he leaves, you just get that third-round compensatory pick back. That's high-level business strategy right there. Coming up next on Philadelphia Eagles Now, we're going to take your questions for a mailbag. Really excited to chop it up with all of you. But let me tell you about this deal, thanks to our friends at Fanatics. This Eagles hoodie was $75. It's now on sale for just $58. All you have to do, use that link down below, chatsports.com/PHI hoodie. Fly Eagles Fly on the front, old school Eagles logo there as well. I was just in Philly. Temperature's starting to get a little bit colder in the city, in the Northeast, all across the country. So you got to hop on board hoodie season and get your hoodies today. All right, let's go to some of our questions for our mailbag. Really excited to talk all things Eagles here on the show. Always love chopping it up with our real ones and the legends who watch this show. We're going to open up the floor for a little bit of a mailbag and a Q&A. You have questions. I have answers. So let's go. Trey Lasado gets us started saying this. Do you see Jalen Phillips getting an extension if he keeps getting better after that amazing performance last Monday? No doubt about it. And I know a lot of teams are going to hit pause because of the injury history, medically retired in college. but had a good career at Miami and UCLA. In 2023, tore his Achilles. Came back from that, tore his ACL in 2024. And some Dolphins writers and people who cover the team had said, really good player, physically not the same guy. Physically, he looked pretty damn good on Monday night against the Green Bay Packers. And when you play the edge rusher spot and you play like that, you're going to catch the attention of a lot of people who are in need of bulking up the trenches, improving their defensive line, and getting better with their pass rush. And so if Jalen Phillips continues to play like he did on Monday, and obviously that's not sustainable, but he plays really, really well, he will get paid in NFL free agency and might outprice himself for Philadelphia. But if that is the case and he does leave, that's fine. Eagles slotted to get back a third-round compensatory pick for him. But what a player, what a debut. And it wasn't just him as a pass rusher, right? Where he was active, pushing the pocket, moving Jordan Love off his spot, being able to generate pressure. He was also excellent against the run. Played with hustle, played with athleticism, played with physicality. What a trade. Andrew Nathan, my guy. Chase, Adoree Jackson is playing okay right now. And with Jacorian Bennett back, our depth is looking better. But do you think the Eagles should sign Stephon Gilmore, or should Howie sign Asante Samuel Jr. off of Pittsburgh's practice squad? So a lot of people might be confused by the Asante Samuel Jr. element of this. He signed to the Steelers practice squad, right? He's on the practice squad, meaning if the Eagles offered him a spot on their active roster, they could poach him off that Steelers practice squad or force Pittsburgh to sign him to their active roster. Some red flags there. Had the spinal fusion surgery. Anytime that is a surgery for a football player, you get concerned. But if medically he checks out, I really like the player. Double-digit pass breakups his first 3 years in the NFL. He was a second-round pick out of Florida State. Obviously, Howie Roseman really values NFL bloodlines. He's talked about that. I don't think the Eagles are in a spot where they need to make a move for a corner. I think they brought in Jaire Alexander as just an additional depth piece to help out some of the young players. Think about what you still have there. You still have Quinyon Mitchell, Adoree Jackson, Keely Ringo, Jacorian Bennett. You have Perry Nickerson on your practice squad. Cooper DeJean can play on the outside if you need him to. And if you put DeJean on the outside, you brought in Michael Carter by way of that trade. He can play in the slot. And you mentioned Adoree Jackson. He has not given up more than 40 receiving yards in a game since week 1. He's actually played pretty well of late. Now, I hated how soft he was in a goal line situation, throwing a shoulder jab at Cam Scatterbo. But to his credit, he's played a little bit better. I don't think the Eagles are in a spot where they need to make a move. But there are some intriguing options. Stephon Gilmore, a little bit old, but he did play and was a starter last year for a Vikings team that was one of the top defenses in football. Kevin Gray. How much longer until we get into panic mode over this offense lacking any consistency? Was Monday about playing a very good defense or more about our offensive coordinator lacking any creativity and running? Really good question, Kevin Gray. I think there's also something to add to that. It was a real field temperature of 17 degrees with howling winds up to 20 miles per hour. That is going to impact how you run the football, how you pass the football. It's going to alter your play calling and your game planning. You're not going to take as many deep shots or air it out as much, knowing the conditions are that. But you also make a good point here. Sometimes, excuse me, can we just give credit where credit is due and give credit to the Packers for how good of a defense that they have? They've been a top 5, top 10 defense all year long. Now, this is also a case where multiple things can be true at the same time and multiple talking points are viable. Do I have some concerns about the Eagles' offense? No doubt about it. But last year, they were really an up and down team, and they didn't peak until late in the season. The same thing happened in 2017 when Doug Peterson had to find a groove with Nick Foles after the Carson Wentz injury. What I love is how well this defense is playing, because coming into this year, where did we have more question marks? Not on offense, with 10 of 11 starters coming back from a team that won a Lombardi. It was the defense. Well, the defense looks to be legit. Top-notch pass rush, elite linebacking core. Quinyon Mitchell's playing like a first-team All-Pro. Cooper DeJean is the best slot corner in the NFL. You can get by with your safeties right now. I like Reed Blankenship. Andrew Makuba's fine. He's a young player who's going to continue to grow. But, yeah, I mean, you want to see this Eagles offense be more consistent. I don't love how Kevin Patullo at times is conservative and coach is scared. But I do believe in this offense that they're going to find it at some point and be more consistent. The other thing, the 2 games going into the bye, Hurts threw 3 tuds over 300 yards against the Vikings in Week 7. Week 8, they ran for nearly 300 yards against the Giants. And then they go up against a really good Packers team coming out of the bye, bad weather, and they falter a little bit. We'll see how they do against Detroit. Another good defense. Kane Angel, after what's going on with A.J. Brown, it's making my mind go crazy. Will the Eagles trade him for real? It's making me go crazy as well. And there are so many different ways to look at this. Like, in the locker room, he's beloved. He doesn't cause any problems. There's a reason why he has that C on his chest. He was voted a team captain by his peers. I've been around AJ. I've seen how he interacts with teammates. I don't look at him as a negative influence who is a locker room distraction. At the same time, when you are 7-2, you're the number 1 seed in the NFC, you've got an opportunity to go back-to-back and you continue to complain about the offense, and you cause drama by what you say, it does become a little bit of a distraction in the sense that Nick Sirianni, the players, A.J. Brown, are always asked about it. Jalen Hurts has to be questioned about it. I mean, you can tell it's starting to get under Nick Sirianni's skin. When he talked about this on Wednesday, he even said, I'm getting close to not answering these questions anymore. So I don't want A.J. Brown to get traded. I think he's the best wide receiver in franchise history. I've been saying that the last 2 years. He is a special one-of-one player. He's a top 3, top 5 wide receiver in football. But if it gets to a point where the distraction becomes too much, then I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles trade him away this offseason. And if they do, because he wants out, I hope he gets sent to like the Jets or the Cleveland Browns. Because look, he's been an all-pro every year he's been with the Eagles. And I don't really like how sometimes he treats and acts toward Jalen Hurts. I don't know what's happened there. But I wish that at times he just wouldn't say what he says. And the other thing that bothers me, people will say, Eagles media, Philly media, they're trash. A.J. Brown is the one who starts all of this, not us. We're not on Twitch. We're not on his Twitter page. We're not doing what he's done on the sideline with some of his outbursts. It's him. Next one from CLXZP. Do you think that we should hire Brian Daboll as our offensive coordinator because Kevin Patullo is not it, man? I'll say this, and John Sheeran sends in the $5 super chat. Thank you, John. If the offense is still this stale going into the playoffs and the unrest gets worse, would they reach out to Daboll for the championship run? Look, you're not going to implement a new offensive coordinator and a new offensive scheme at this point of the year or at the end of the year. That only happens when you're a really bad football team. Now, I know in 2023, when Sean Desai was the DC, Nick Sirianni shifted gears to Matt Patricia. How'd that work out? The defense was just as bad, if not worse, because Patricia had never called or ran that type of defense. They didn't change the scheme. They changed the play caller. Brian Daboll runs a different offense than what the Eagles run. And so I'll say this on Patullo. Sometimes he coaches too conservative. Sometimes he coaches a little bit scared. The sequencing of plays is lacking at times. Hopefully that gets better with experience. But I don't think the Eagles at this point are going to make a change that's external. Kenny, I like how this defense is going. Stop the Lions running back attack because Sonic and Knuckles are tough and dangerous. Yeah, I was calling them Lightning and Thunder. Sonic and Knuckles is their nickname. They are a fun running back tandem to watch. Jahmyr Gibbs, one of the more explosive players, not just running backs in the NFL. He'll hit you on the ground game and through the air. And that pull-away speed, the athleticism, his vision, his patience, his cutback ability, the jump cuts, it's all elite. Then you have David Montgomery, who will just run you over. And he's the north-south guy. So stopping the ground game is going to be a huge key in this game for this Philadelphia defense on Sunday night, no doubt about it. Great questions, great observations, great analysis by all of you, and great comments. Who you got in this game? DET for Detroit, PHI for Philadelphia. Go Birds. Desron Simpkins, $2 super chat. Thanks for everyday coverage. Go Birds. Thank you, Desron. Appreciate you. And then Kevin Gray with another $5 super chat. My man, you brought the heat a little bit earlier as part of the mailbag, so I do appreciate that. All right, we're going to sign off. A great show here today. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. Live for about an hour. I had told you it was going to be a little bit of a shorter show because we did a breaking news video a little bit earlier today. Thanks to Chip for producing, getting the show together. Thanks to all of you for hanging out. Next time we'll be live, barring any crazy breaking news. We'll be on Sunday night. Subscribe, hit that bell icon, turn on your noties, and as always, EAGLES Eagles.